There's a new city builder on the block, all about robots, rocket ships, and tending groves of subterranean mushrooms. This is SteamWorld Build, and it does things a little differently. Up here, you'll be playing a classic town management game, but that's only half of it. The rest of it takes place down here. It's essentially 2 games rolled into one, which is ambitious and a little bonkers. I got a chance to see if there was some method in the madness, so let's see how it holds up. So, SteamWorld Build. On paper, this is a pretty easy sell to me. Half of the game is a city builder. I like that sort of thing. The other half is basically Dungeon Keeper, and I love Dungeon Keeper. The premise of this is simple. You find a nice plot of land and build a micro community for you and your fellow robots. But the aim of the game is not to set up and stay. You want to get your robotic rump off the planet because it's about to, well, I wasn't quite sure, explode or something, I guess. Tunneling away underneath your town, you'll scrounge up rocket parts and advance your technology. You'll progress, upgrade, and unlock the means to go ever deeper to find the last few springs and sprockets for your spaceship. Once you've got them all, you fuel her up and blast off. I'm not sure what happens to your people at that point, but I'm sure they live happily ever after. So it has an endpoint and a story mode, which isn't the usual approach for these types of games. Though you can turn that off and make it into a sandbox mode in case you like the idea of digging and building with no pressure or story. As I said earlier, the game is split into 2 parts, above the ground and under it. You'll start your journey up here, so it makes sense to cover that first. Let's talk about SteamWorld Build, the city builder. This whole part of the game is very approachable. It's your good old-fashioned grid-based town builder dealio, with things basically split into 2 camps. On one hand, you've got the residential aspect. You'll house your colony of Autobots. Then you'll build some essential services to keep them happy and put them to work to help them earn some lovely robo-bucks, which you do get a cut of course. Progression tiers are locked behind population size, and once you've satisfied all their robo needs, they can be promoted to the next robo class. Workers turn into engineers, which turn into aristocrats, and finally into scientists. The more advanced your citizens, the more money they'll bring in, and the greater the variety of goods they'll be able to make, which brings me on to the other side of town management, industry. You'll have to put your people to work bringing in raw resources and then refining them into building materials or service goods. These processes start off simple, say a lump of wood turning into a plank. But as you get further, these production chains can involve multiple ingredients for multiple different buildings. It's a logistical problem, essentially. Every now and then, a train will pass through your town. Here you can buy or sell goods, or unlock a special item to attach to your buildings to make them more productive. To some of you, these mechanics might sound familiar. You might be piecing this together in your head and thinking, this sounds a bit like Anno. Yeah, you're right, it is just like that. It's the same building blocks completely, but I'm okay with that. Anno's a good game. There's a lot to like in this portion of the game. First and foremost, it's incredibly charming. Developers, the station, have put a lot of care into the art style and the animations, and your little settlement does feel vibrant and alive. The buildings are creative and visually interesting, and if you want to spruce things up here and there are a bunch of different decorations to mess around with. Though I didn't like how nearly all of the decorations were the same size, all fitting on a single 1x1 square. It would have felt more organic with some more size variety. The UI is clean, everything is simple to navigate, and there are some nice quality of life features which make things easier. You can set down a blueprint for a building, and once you've got the required materials, it'll automatically build it for you. I like that. I always plan, but I forget to actually do. What I would never forget though, is why I'm here in the first place. The aim of the game is to launch this spaceship right here, but you can't do that while whittling away your days on the surface. No, you'll need to get your hands dirty and go underground. Which brings me on to the second part of the game, SteamWorld Build, the Dungeon Keeper-like. Just as your town is progressing, so too is your little subterranean labyrinth. You start off just below the surface, and as you build up your under empire, you'll be able to go deeper, unlocking biomes with different resources and greater dangers. The devs have done a good job keeping these varied, not just in what you can find, but in the whole general feel. The lighting changes depending on the depth, as do the earth tiles, the enemies, and even the struts that you build to keep the whole thing caving in. I was ready to be very critical of this portion of the game, because I do consider myself to be, well, a bit of a dungeon keeper aficionado, but it was all very well put together, and pretty damn fun. In fact, I found myself spending more time down here than I did on the surface. I became the king of moles, and I'm okay with that. Though there were some issues and design choices I really didn't like. There's a lot of undiggable tiles, which essentially shapes your underground layout. This means it's hard to have lots of nice, lovely square rooms, and most of the time you'll just be throwing down areas wherever you can. Also, there's no doors. This might just be a me thing, but doors were a top priority for me in Dungeon Keeper. Having all the rooms open just made things feel, I don't know, drafty. Every now and then the planet will fight back and send a mini wave of monsters to attack your territory. I enjoyed this feature. The constant threat of danger is nice to have, keeps you on your toes and all that. Though I'd have liked a few more traps and turrets to play around with, and, you know, doors to keep the bugs out. You don't use the same citizens in the mine as you do on the surface. They're a whole different group. They won't rank up like your town inhabitants. Instead, you can assign areas for different workers, and they'll come down and toil away. It's all pretty simple. Miners dig earth, prospectors dig minerals, engineers build and repair gizmos, and guards just bash things. Just like upstairs, the devs have added in some nice quality of life features that make building a subterranean layer a painless experience. You can automatically jump to resource nodes or instantly locate specific room types, which is all very handy. So there's the same level of care and thought put into this portion of the game. They work in isolation, but that's not the whole game. Everything kinda hinges on how these two segments interact. Progress isn't tied to just one settlement or the other. It all sort of mingles together. You'll need to get a specific resource underground to make an advanced component in town, to attract new citizens, to unlock new tools for your excavation crew. It's a balancing act, but one that does work. I did feel like I was spending more time underground, but that might just be because I like dirt. At no point did I feel like I was neglecting one aspect of the game, which I'm pretty impressed with. I was initially worried that these would be two halves of a game that didn't make a whole, but they bounced off each other well. The two halves also just felt different. You can make everything all preen and proper up here with decorations and effective city planning, but the dig site is no man's land. It'll be messy and sprawling and ugly. There are a few bugbears I had with the game, that's for sure. I couldn't assign hotkeys to build things I placed down a lot, and some mechanics clarifications weren't clear. There was confusion in the town items, how their effects triggered, whether they stacked, and it didn't really help that a lot of the different items all shared the same icons. But my main issue is a bigger one. The game sets the goals for you, that is, launching your rocket ship, but I couldn't really work out what comes next. After completing the story, I did get a spur to immediately start up again, to do things better and be more organized. But I quickly realized that there's not a whole lot of room to punch up into. It's not like Anno where you have 10,000 plates all spinning at once. Here there's maybe a dozen. I went into my second game with the tricks I'd learnt already, and I was immediately raking in Robobucks tax money on the hardest difficulty. The challenge was taken out, and with that, I didn't really know what I was working towards. It's frustrating, because I do like the game. It just needs something bigger going on, a larger goal to aspire to, and I think it's something they could add. I don't know, a museum where you collect artifacts you unearth in the mine. A more threatening underground layer to really test your base building. Some kind of meta progression that adds a twist to each new town. Doors. There are minor unlocks you get for finishing a map, but that's 5 things in total, and they don't change a whole lot. A few sprinkles of post-launch content to provide some replayability will elevate this to a really outstanding game, because it is one. Despite those issues, I would still wholeheartedly recommend it. That first playthrough was a blast. It was charming, quirky, original, and just overflowing with character. It's a really solid addition to the SteamWorld franchise, but with just something added on at the end, it could well be the best. I've no doubt that this will provide a lot of fun for a lot of people, and I think it's a really solid way to get your feet wet with these types of games, or provide a twist if you're already a bit of a seasoned city planner. This is unthreatening, this is friendly, this may open the door to other games if you want something on the complex side, but then again, this may well be your perfect level of depth, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, once again, this is SteamWorld Build. It does the SteamWorld name proud, and its issues don't detract from the fact that this is just remarkably likable.